Talking stimulus, Joe Biden, our vice president, on a little bit of a tour around the country, starting in Ohio this morning, pounding the table on the stimulus spend. It'll then be in upstate New York, Saratoga County, horse racing territory, yes. I believe. Barry Ritholtz about to join the conversation, author of Bailout Nation, a fine book indeed. Nice to see you. Before we get into the conversation, Bill Fleckenstein, also a book author, The Greenspan Bubble. That's a whole other conversation. We'll come back for that one in a second. Bill, how you doing? Anyway,
How are you?
Bill's sitting in Seattle patiently, just sort of gazing in a room somewhere with a fake background and a camera, but he looks charming as all get out, all the same. Nice to see you, Bill. So anyway, let's talk Ohio for 1 second here, because Joe Biden chose the venue. Stimulus, in theory, is to create jobs and to create economic activity, raises tax revenue, reduces unemployment. Everybody's happy. People are in their homes. We eat food and we're merry. We play horseshoes in the backyard. But take a look at the data in Ohio, and what you'll see is the unemployment rate continues to rise in that state. And you'll notice, again, at the bottom of that chart, I know these graphics are kind of tricky ones, but basically the point is May's unemployment at a new high. It is more than a full percentage point above the national average in Ohio. Unemployment remains a problem in Ohio. That's my point. Tax revenues, which are a reflection of economic activity in that state. Are people making more money? Is there sales tax revenue coming in? Is there income tax revenue coming in? All those sorts of factors. Well, no. 11% below what they were figuring they would be at.
That's a national story. You see that in every state in the nation and the federal government.
Tax revenues are lower.
Plummeting.
Unemployment is higher.
There's a huge move for people to get their homes reassessed so their property taxes go down.
Which
that's going to really hurt. Absolutely.
Dramatically. So if you're going to stimulate an economy and the objective is to raise tax revenue for government services and reduce unemployment and raise that tax revenue through economic activity, the stimulus by that measure, Barry, Bill, Jonathan, Stephen, not working.
Well, so far we've only deployed 7% of the money, and I think there was actually a conscious effort to say, hey, this isn't going to be fixed anytime soon. We're not getting cheerleading from the administration, so they spread it out over 2 years to sort of cushion an ongoing weakness. Now, they could have front-loaded it and just gone for the gold.
A bunch of money,
and if nothing happened, if 6 months later things are still bad, because we continue to see foreclosures, there was just the mortgage PMI company.
But isn't there just as much of a risk that if you just keep if I just put a little trickle, that I burn all the money and nothing happens?
It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you throw a Hail Mary and drop the bomb all at once, or do you spread it out? And I think they are slowly ramping it up.
Bill, how do you stimulate an economy properly, in your opinion?
Well, it's very tricky to say stimulate economy properly because the reason we're in this mess, part of it is because of excess stimulus provided by the Federal Reserve and the bubbles that were created and all of that.
Through the cheap money.
So if you look, if you look at like the restaurant industry, everybody can see restaurants going out of business where they live. That's very unfortunate for those companies, but the ones that are left that survive can do better. And that's what happens in capitalism. The strong survive and the weak go away. And we're in this gigantic mess that was brought to us by too much stimulus. If we willy-nilly apply stimulus, it just creates a lingering death. Look at the auto companies. You could argue that if one of them went away, the ones that were left would be vibrant. Those workers could potentially go to another industry down the road. So all of these attempts to stop the pain immediately, in a lot of cases, just prolong it and just make it look different. They cannot change the outcome. They can just alter the path, and in a lot of cases, they make it worse.
And am I wrong, Bill, Barry, Jonathan, Stephen, in thinking that there's no better example of that than the banks? In other words, we had horribly behaved banks that were badly managed, that created very fragile institutions. They put themselves in a failed situation. They took risks they couldn't handle. They paid themselves handsomely for taking that risk. Then when they couldn't handle the risk, they should have collapsed in a normal capitalist system, and yet the taxpayer steps in, and now we're trying to stimulate. It seems like I feel like I'm in a crazy place.
You're not in a crazy place. You're in Japan, which is exactly what happened 15 years ago, and they went into a decade-long recession. Instead of letting the zombie banks die, they propped them up with taxpayer dollars, and Bill is absolutely right. You take these bad companies and you put them out of business.
Hold on 1 second. I want to show this poll on Obama in Ohio specifically. We talk about, again, you want to look at where the stimulus is working at home. In your own state, take a look at what your state's unemployment rate is. Take a look at what your state's tax revenues look like. That will give you a very good indication as to whether the the economy is getting stronger or weaker in your state for obvious reasons. And you can see, I showed you the Ohio data. We'll look at the Ohio polling data on Obama. Stands to reason, Jonathan Capehart, that if they're not able to figure out a more effective way to do this, if they don't revise perhaps their theory on allowing too big to fail, on supporting failed institutions, or if they don't come up with some other way to create work, that Mr. Obama's poll numbers, President Obama's poll numbers will continue to go down.
The president and the administration has to find a way to get the stimulus money out the door a whole lot faster than it's going. I mean, right now, as it was said before, it's trickling out. And I read in the papers this morning where they say, as time goes on, more and more of the money will go out, which leads me to think, is the current stimulus package, is it really failing, or have we not seen the full impact of it yet?
No doubt
And I would say we clearly haven't, because they haven't spent all the money. But I think Bill Fleckenstein makes it.
But my question is, once you spend...
But hang on, Jonathan, what about Bill Fleckenstein's point that stimulating an economy that is falsely propping up failed businesses, to Stephen A. Smith's point from a couple of days ago, which is perpetuating failed business as an American model, is dooms America effectively?
I don't think it dooms America.
In other words, it doesn't help this country to perpetuate giant businesses that have failed.
That's right. Separate the three things we're doing, some right, some wrong. Propping up businesses that should go out of business, absolutely wrong. Going for another credit binge, you can't drink yourself sober. Right. You can't get rid of excess leverage with more leverage. But the tax cuts that we've seen, that's offsetting the big rise in oil prices, and some of these shovel-ready public works programs, that'll have a positive impact. So they got 1 out of 3 right.
Who is that? Was that you, Stephen?
Can we get down to the bottom line here? Let's just call it like we see it. It at least appears thus far that the administration appears inept. There is no way to slice it. The unemployment rate keeps elevating. And the reality is, when you have the vice president coming out talking about we misread the economy, you've got Republicans saying, how in God's name could that have happened? We were all in the office with you. We were trying to dissuade you from doing the things that you've done, when considering the fact that the unemployment rate keeps escalating, businesses continue to struggle, people are unemployed, et cetera, et cetera. You've got the president coming out saying that there is nothing that he would do differently, and the Democratic Party as a whole does not seem on the same page with one another right now. They are showing the world that they're struggling to run this country.
Jonathan, Stephen, that's going to do it. I love the passion. I love the point. The conversation continues. It's a good thing it's a 2-hour meeting, and it's a good thing we have it every day. Bill, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get as much time with you as I would have liked. Barry, thank you. Same to you. Stephen, I'm keeping you. Jonathan, you're beautiful. I'm keeping you. Let's keep going here. Straight ahead on the morning meeting. Back to Blagojevich, to my other conversation from earlier. What reforms must the American taxpayer demand on the way our government functions to prevent politicians like Blagojevich to so easily get in to the pay-for-play business? We're back for legally mandated enforcement and investigations in this country, something we seem to have lost sight of.